When it comes to the chatter around Sony cameras right now, all I'm hearing is, where's the A7V? When's the FX3 Mark II coming around? And what camera will Sony Productions choose for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4? But I have a question that might just eclipse all of those. When is the Sony FX30 Mark II coming out? Because this is my favorite Sony camera. So let's put our tinfoil hats on and try to predict what will the Sony FX30 Mark II actually shape up to be. This video is sponsored by absolutely no one, so please support me on Patreon, and yeah, thank you, much appreciated. So we're gonna structure this video in a sort of wish list style and just go one by one the things that I wanna see from an FX30 Mark II. Let's just take a little admiration second. This camera is beautiful, and I really love the sensor in this camera for the most part, which is shared by the A6700. That camera, freaking amazing. If you haven't seen my video on that camera, go check it out. That camera is a value-packed beast for sure. And I believe the sensor is also in the ZV-1 Mark II. I don't know if that's the correct thing, but I'll put it on the screeny. I've gotten some incredible images out of this thing for tons of YouTube videos, tons of client projects, but there are a couple issues I've had that I think warrant an iteration or update of this sensor. First and probably most obvious is the noise performance, specifically in the shadows. Even though this camera is a dual native ISO capable camera of 800 and 2500, you still get quite a bit of noise in the sensor. And some of you might be thinking, oh, that's because it's Super 35 and not full frame, but there are actually Micro Four Thirds sensors that are cleaner performing than this one in particular. And don't get me wrong, the noise performance isn't bad by any means. There's plenty of times I film with this camera, there's a little bit of noise, but I just leave it in the project, or the contrast in the grade kind of washes it out anyway, where it's not that big of a problem. And if I do want perfectly pristine, clean images, I just use like 5% noise reduction in Resolve, and it totally gets the job done. How do I put a lens on this? So I do think it would be awesome to see Sony make a second version of this Super 35 sensor and really focus on the cleanliness of the image to match the FX3, FX6, stuff like that. The other issue I've experienced with this camera and the sensor, I think it's a sensor issue, but don't fully trust me, I'm an idiot, is the fact that 4K 120 in this camera, yes, it has 120 frames per second, so does the A6700, but it is significantly cropped in on the sensor. So when you have those noise issues plus a pretty decent crop, the noise appears bigger because it's being cropped in on. So if they had a better sensor, I think that would be helpful at the very least, but I would like to see 4K 120 in an FX30 Mark II with no crop. I think it would make this camera be even more professional and usable alongside like an FX3 or 6 or whatever else you're using from Sony. And it would also just make it more competitive in the market, where there's a lot of affordable options right now that shoot incredible frame rates around the same price. At least I think there are. This camera's around $2,000. I mean, now you have the Nikon ZR. That's a whole other video. Let's say Sony agrees and does what I'm saying, making a new sensor. I would still like to see it be around the same 26 megapixel resolution. It's a really great resolution for on-the-fly stills that actually look beautiful from both the A6700, the FX30. So that resolution's great. Let's keep it around the same, at least if you let me choose, which might not be the best idea. But also I would love to see a slight tweak in the dual native ISO range. Let's keep it maybe around like 800 at the initial base, but let's bump that second base to like 4,000 or 5,000. I think my son's knocking on my studio door. Doesn't he know I'm on my literal grind? And then finally, in terms of the sensor and maybe making a new one, I would love to see the similar resolution we're talking about, which I believe is like a 6K native resolution, but give us a full open gate mode. Come on, if Panasonic's doing it, Canon's doing it now, freaking Apple's doing it on the iPhones, Sony, it's time to give in. You don't have to be the best at everything. You can sometimes follow suit. I know that might seem like a resolution stretch, but give us open gate. Okay, now let's move on to wish list item number 2, and we're talking about design. I think this one's way more likely than point number 1 to actually happen because we saw the FX2, which I did review recently. Actually really enjoyed that camera. In particular, I love the updated body from the FX3 and 30 style, which added a cool little flip up EVF that I know is kind of polarizing, but overall I think is an amazing option. So I would love to see that come to the FX30 Mark II. And yeah, I don't know. It just helps me relive my handycam vibe days for sure. It makes me feel like a child in the best ways. And it's also extremely helpful for shooting both photo and video in really bright conditions. And these cameras are so compact, they're so easy to take everywhere. It's nice to have that option when Sony's LCD panels are notoriously lower quality and not extremely bright outdoors. So please give us that EVF, it would be awesome. And let's take the other cool stuff from the FX2, like the dual quarter 20s, the new photo video switch, the rearranged buttons that make one-hand operation even easier, and give us the fancy new AI chip tech so we can have the best performance possible. And yeah, I think that'll make it pretty good. Okay, cool, thanks. And lastly, I would love to see the LCD panel not only updated to be better quality on the next version of this camera, but can we go A7R5 mode and do the flip and tilt, please? That would be incredible. It's just so useful. I have it on my S1R2 right here, and it's like the best screen I've ever had. Okay, wish list item number 3, and anytime I say the number 3, I think of Dwayne Wade, so here you go.
Back to Dwayne, shoots, no, he couldn't get it off, now fires it up, bank it in, it counts!
We will collab someday. D-Wade, please have me on your podcast. I could offer a lot of value to your community. Okay, wish list item number 3 is actually giving us professional exposure tools. I won't spend too much time on this one, but for the love of our sweet Lord, can we please have false color in some compact Sony cameras? I mean, the Sigma FP, which I'm working on a video for, had false color, and that camera was released in 1974. So I think it's time, Sony. Wishlist item number 4, improved IBIS. Okay, first of all, I gotta say it before anyone comments, but yes, the FX30 has some of the best stabilization in compact Sony cameras. I'm assuming it's because it's a smaller sensor that they built for this camera that they were able to make a different stabilization system, which turns out to be one of their best because it probably has to work less hard because the sensor's smaller, but I would still love to see it improved because now I'm a spoiled little brat with Lumix cameras, and even their full frame cameras have the best IBIS that I've ever used, and I would love to see Sony start to climb that ladder. The FX2 actually had pretty dang good stabilization as well, so let's iterate on that, put it in the FX30 Mark II, and make it even better because the sensor is smaller. Okay, and now wishlist item number 5, internal RAW video. It's kind of weird. I feel like internal RAW video has been around and been talked about for so long. Like we were even hacking our 70Ds and 5D threezels back in the day, putting that diesel RAW video on it. You know what I mean? Just cracking our cameras. But now it's finally somehow becoming more of a regular standard to get RAW performance out of our smaller cameras. And I think especially now with the Nikon ZR and the Canon R6 III having internal amazing RAW stuff, I think these other companies are gonna have to start pushing that even harder. And we'll see if all these cameras just light on fire, but I would love to see Sony take a crack at it and put it in an affordable camera like this to compete with something like the ZR. Now, I know it's not gonna be a red RAW by any means, which is the GOAT for most people in terms of RAW codecs, but it would be cool even if we got ProRes RAW, because now that works in DaVinci Resolve, which is a game changer, or Blackmagic RAW, which you can do externally from Sony cameras, which is very cool using their HDMI feed. But imagine internal in a compact setup like this that looks this sexy. I don't think there's a small cinema camera that looks as sexy as this that has come out yet. So yeah, we already have RAW options, but to make it that convenient and powerful would be amazing, especially if it's something like 12 or 14-bit. That would be freaking beautiful. I just did a bunch of tests on the Sigma FP, and it just has internal 12-bit HD RAW footage in Cinema DNG, and that footage looks like a freaking movie, dude. I finally feel like I understand RAW and why so many people love it. So let's start to make that a thing. And Sony, it's time to do it with the FX30. But other than those items, really the FX30 is the most well-rounded camera I have ever owned and is great at so many things. I love that the sensor is smaller because I can use ultra compact lenses, and it allows me to get angles and setups and hard mounted options from this camera that I cannot do with bigger full frame cameras. But this camera is great for live streams. It never overheats, even in 6-hour plus live streams. It does live streaming over USB-C. Obviously you can do DCI 4K, you can do UHD up to 120p. You get your S-Log options, internal 10-bit codecs, great autofocus, stabilization, great audio features. You get the fancy hot handle top shoe thing. So you can take Sony mic and do this. And my dad's name is Mike, so it all makes sense. It's great for super long form interviews or vlogging or YouTube setups in a studio. It looks professional, so you can take it on set, use it as a gimbal camera or a B or C camera, even an A camera for some stuff. And it shoots really beautiful stills. I still use it for thumbnails quite a bit because I love how the stills come out looking out of this camera. It's just, they're absolutely beautiful, and they're that perfect middle ground resolution where it doesn't chew up too much hard drive space. I don't know, I just hear so much about the upcoming Sony full frame cameras. I feel like our beloved little FX30 here is getting overshadowed by A7V and FX3 Mark II rumors. And I don't know, I used the A7 IV, it was cool. I used the FX3, it was cool. But there's just something about the FX30 that has always drawn me in. I think I'm just such a huge fan and proponent of value to quality as a ratio versus just buying the most expensive, best thing you can possibly get. How can you maximize something that's more affordable and make people wonder, was that shot on full frame? Was this a cinema camera? No, dude, that was my little $1,500 at the time FX30. Yes, the price has gone up. That's a whole nother topic. Sony, please don't raise the price. But that's what I think the FX30 Mark II should be. Please like this video and subscribe. And wow, I don't ever really say subscribe. That felt kind of weird. Check out my second channel, my tech channel, where I make little 7-day documentaries, a lot of times filming with the FX30. Please consider supporting on Patreon. I'm thinking about expanding some of the tiers in there and adding some cool stuff. So check that out. It would mean the world, help feed my family. Follow me on Instagram for short and dumb stuff. And yeah, make sure to text me when you get home so I know you're safe, and watch out for deer. And remember that you guys are loved much more than you might even know, okay? I think I just butchered my outro, but you know what I'm saying. All right, love you all. Bye.